In the last video we had a character which fell down and hit a platform. When you move left and right it fell off the platform. Just to show you this particular movie, it falls down. I've made the player a bit smaller so it just gives you a bit of a better experience. Okay, so the next step is to get it so that when you press the space bar the character jumps. Now the jump's quite a straightforward thing really. When you press the space bar you just need it to take away a certain value from the y-axis, and what that'll do is it'll give it the impression of actually jumping up. The only trouble with that is that it doesn't look very realistic, and so it tends to just appear and then fall down again. So what I've done with this particular file, and this is also up on the VLE, is I've actually put some extra code in there to give a more realistic jump. Now it's quite a complicated process, so I thought it'd be better to actually get a working model and then to explain what's actually going off in there. So I'll just show you how this actually works. Can you see there we've got a jump, and so go down to the bottom and I can go on there and I can jump back up again, and you can see as it jumps it goes faster. It goes fast to start off with, slows down, and then speeds up as it starts coming back down again, and that's exactly what you would get in a proper jump. So it gives it a realistic look. Okay, I'll just show you the code and I'll just explain what's going off. Now this is altered somewhat from the original code. What we've got here is we've got extra variables, so we've got left, right, jump, which is another boolean, and can jump, which is another boolean. The idea of can jump is that once you've already pressed the jump or the space bar, you don't want to be able to carry on jumping in midair, otherwise you'd be forever launching yourself higher and higher. If you wanted that, then obviously that's the right thing to do, but generally you can only jump once you've landed on a solid surface. So you can see bringing an extra variable in there takes care of that. And what we've got is we've got another variable in there called y velocity, and the y-axis obviously is top to bottom, and what we're actually doing is we're creating another variable that takes care of that easing effect. So rather than just moving it by 1 pixel at a time, we were incrementing it by a pixel at a time until it hit something. What we're going to do is make that a little bit variable, and it also takes care of the jump. It works quite well. Now if you look in the event listener section, in the game loop we had move player and gravity. What we've done is we've incorporated gravity into the move player section. So in move player we've got left and right as normal, and we've also got if jump and can jump. Right? So that means that if you're already in the middle of a jump, I'm not going to allow it to jump. If I took that bit out, then I'd be able to jump at any point. And it sets this y velocity to a negative value, a -15. As we see there, it sets it to a negative value to fall up. The idea is that actually when you're jumping it's almost the reverse of gravity, so you're actually then in the process of falling up. And if you can imagine y velocity as being the value that we increment or decrement the player's position, in the other example where we just had standard gravity, y velocity would have been set to 1, so it would have added 1 every time. If you set it to -1, then you've got inverse velocity, so you would actually start to fall up. And the reason it's set to -15 is because when you first jump, you jump quite quick and it slows down, and then as you fall then you start to speed up again, and we'll see how this works a bit later on in this code. Obviously then sets can jump to false so that you can't actually jump again. And that's all that does, and the rest of this code, as it says on there, takes care of the gravity, the falling, whether you're falling up or falling down. So it increases the gravity velocity from -15 whilst jumping, as in you're falling up, to a maximum of 20, which is terminal velocity. You can see there, if y velocity is less than 20, then just add 1 to it. So it starts off at -15, it'll go -14, -13, etc. up to 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 20. And it explains a little bit about the easing on there. So the idea is that the player moves relative to this y velocity. So it starts off, and say the player's position is at 100. As long as it's not hitting the platform, then what it does is it adds -15 to it to start off with. Well, technically it's -14 because it's actually added 1 to it there. So it adds -14 to it, and 100 plus -14 is actually 100 minus 14. So that would be 86. And then next time that comes around, y velocity will be a lower value, so it'll move by a smaller amount, until eventually y velocity is going to get to 0 and it actually adds nothing to it. Then it gets to 1, it'll add 1 to it instead of taking away. So you can see it gives the impression of it jumping up fast to start off with, slows down towards the top, and then speeds up towards what would be technically called terminal velocity. And terminal velocity, you can see there, is 20. If we wanted it to fall faster, then we could just increase that figure. So that takes care of the falling itself. And then at the bottom, without this bit at the bottom, what you actually get, because it's moving by up to 20 points at any one time, it could possibly land and move it actually past the top of a platform and into the middle of a platform. So what this actually does is does a little bit of a bounce. It does a loop which moves the player up by a pixel. It resets the gravity velocity to 0, so it's not actually then moving any further down. So it moves 1 pixel at a time back up 10 pixels, because it starts off at 0, goes up to 10. It's in a for loop, and then allows you to be able to jump again, and it can jump, and it tells it it's not currently jumping. So it does a little bit of a bounce, and this takes care of the fact that at any one time you may just land slightly into an object. So it moves it back up again, and then obviously you would fall back down with gravity if you just moved up a little bit too far. And this, it carries on doing that whilst you are actually hitting the platform. And this is all part of the move player in there. And the rest of it's just a standard. We've got an event listener for keyboard key down and one for key up, and all I've added to it, I've not added anything to the key up, because the jump becomes false once you've finished jumping. So that's fine, we don't need to have one for key up for that. But key down, we've got event key code, which is 32, and 32 is spacebar. If you wanted a different key, then you just find out the key code for that, and they're standard ASCII key codes for your keyboard. Okay, so as you can see, by just altering things around, we've got quite a realistic jump. One thing I would say, if you wanted to sort of explore into this, and it sort of probably gets a little bit more complicated, is that as I'm jumping, I can actually change direction, which technically it sort of adds to the game a little bit, because if you've jumped off and you can go back again, you could put some coins or objects to collect in strange places that you might have to sort of change direction in midair and move again. So one thing to sort of take into consideration may be that how would you actually get it so that it wasn't going to change direction in mid-air? Now, it's important that once you've pressed a right or a left key and you're jumping, that it moves in that direction. Now, if I actually say you can't move left or right once you're in the middle of a jump, what actually happens is it'll only ever let you just jump straight up in the air. Obviously, experiment with that with yourself. But I'm thinking along the lines of having to have, if the jump key is being pressed and the right key, or if the jump key is being pressed and the left key, and then other than that, you're looking at standard left, standard right, and standard jump. And I think that jump and left and jump and right would be specifics at the top. So you're then saying, once I've pressed jump and left, I cannot actually change anything else. And you may even have another variable in there to sort of say, in the same way that you've got can jump, you may have another one to say I can't change direction. But it'd be good if somebody would have gone into it and had a look at that and tried to get it. Don't have a look on the internet, just experiment with this code yourselves and just see what we can come up with to solve this problem. I could solve it myself, but it's there for you to have a go at. It doesn't take anything away from the game, but in a perfect world, maybe you might be thinking about not allowing yourself to change direction while you're in mid-air. Okay, so the next video we're going to start to go on to looking at shooting. We covered that in an earlier video, getting bullets to shoot out. Really, then we're putting things together, putting a bullet onto the character. So you've got a character that's on a platform and it's jumping and it's able to shoot as well. Okay, I'll see you next time.